Hey everyone, and welcome to Almost Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Devs episode 4, so full spoilers for the episode as always. We're already halfway through the show, so
Jeez.
I know. Which, a lot of these limited series end up feeling like this, but this one is a add to the pile of like, oh, this is just a long movie. This isn't really a TV show in the traditional sense, because the amount of plot we've had in 4 episodes, and given that we're halfway through the story, I'm like, no, this is a movie. It's got some time to breathe.
Yeah, the only benefit I'll give this one over some of the others that we've had this feeling with is a lot of it just feels like Alex Garland movies of just, hey, let's just sit and watch this for 30 seconds. And, there's just more of that than we get in his movie. But it feels the same. It doesn't feel like it's stretched out like some of these other ones do.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it wasn't really a complaint so much as just an observation of how it feels as a series. The episode again kind of revolves around 2 main things happening, with a tease of something to come. Forrest is watching the future, and it looks like Lily's dying. Now I'm expecting a swerve here. I'm expecting it looks like that, but maybe something else actually happens, or
I would go as far as to say is he is looking at the wrong future.
well, that's something that's heavily introduced in this episode. But as of now, there's been no indication that what he looks at when he's looking at his distorted images is the wrong future or the wrong past. Like, because his whole thing is about sticking to the one. He doesn't want variables. He doesn't want the multiverse theory, and that's kind of where a big part of the plot from the dev side of the episode comes. This episode, where the kid essentially does it the other way. Instead of looking at the audio sound waves that he has been doing, he does it the other way and sort of incorporates potentials instead of just locking to the one set thing. And they get a clear recording of what sounds like Jesus speaking to people 2,000 years ago. And everyone's like so excited by it. This sounds clear. They're all happy. And then Forrest just shoots them down and says, "Nope, you're fired." This has got everyone excited over something that's not correct. Like, no, that's a possible Jesus and a possible past. Then it's
he makes
past.
a point where the defense was, yeah, but it could be as little as just he's one hair off our Jesus, and his point is, yeah, okay, he could be, or he could be 2 hairs, 3, and it gets further and further, and it gets to a point where you don't know how accurate it is at all, right?
Yeah, and so he fires him, and the kid, when he's leaving, Lyndon, when he's leaving, he gets really emotional. He's told not to speak to anyone. He's getting paid a $10 million severance package, which I think is part, the incentive to stay quiet and just be happy that you had this opportunity. You're fine for life, basically, if you just, go and, and he was a kid. The kid been handing $10 million. And he makes it very clear, though, if you ever speak to anyone about this, I'll know. And it obviously doesn't say I'll kill you, but even Stuart, when he's saying goodbye to the kid, says, "Look, basically he said he was going to kill you if you ever speak to anyone." So he's
the threat was pretty implied.
Yeah, but he's making it very clear because he wants the kid to not do that. He's like, no, make sure you do not speak to anyone. Make sure you never bring this up again, because he cares about the kid. So there's a bit of an emotional beat there. But of course, Katie gets kind of pissed at this and says, like, did you know you were going to do that today? Is that something that you did because you thought you had to, because this was what was always going to happen? And she brings up the same memory we have seen him watch of his daughter. And when during the argument, he even says, yes, 1 hair of a difference. It has to be my daughter. It can't be another version of me's daughter. If I'm looking at my daughter, I want it to be my daughter. And she says, well, I broke a rule anyway, and I applied the same algorithm that he used, the kid used, to the visual waves. To the light waves, and presses a button, walks out the room, and we get this, probably my favorite scene of the episode, honestly, is this emotional beat of him watching the distorted image of his daughter, like it's through the what did I compare it before, the scrambled cable channel,
Yes,
pay-per-view or often porn, let's be honest, but it sort of undistorts and gradually gets a bit of color, gradually gets more defined, and then ultimately, by the time it gets to the end, it looks like, just a HD 4K image of the little girl in a room blowing some bubbles.
yeah. Do you know what? I have to wonder if there's a fear as well that, okay, they've applied this, and it looks like it just clears up, right? So it looks like, okay, it's the exact same thing he thought it was.
Mm-hmm.
But what if it's not, is his concern. And I think the thing is as well, okay, for the future, his rails, everything's on the rails. It's going where he knows it's going. what if it's not? And I think that terrifies him. He doesn't want to introduce that possibility. He wants to know that what he thinks is going to happen will happen for whatever reason, whatever it is his plan is.
Well, I think it makes sense from a character perspective. You know, this is someone who lost his daughter. This idea, like, he finds comfort in knowing exactly what's going to happen because, you know, once upon a time in his life, something, the biggest thing possible, is taken from him in a presumably a fairly shock incident.
It seems to be, yeah.
Yeah, we don't know the exact context for any of his past necessarily, but you know, it seems like it was a sharp change to his life that he didn't see coming, and I think he's obsessed with knowing what's coming because he doesn't want to be blindsided and have that pain again.
I agree, but I also feel like there's something specific he has seen that in the future that
Oh, sure,
he
yeah.
is determined to work towards.
I mean, yeah, that's something we were debating in the last couple of episodes, and I think again here, like, you know, Katie does this to him to sort of show the power of this, but he still insists that his point is valid. That, you know, but of course, actually seeing it, he still breaks down. Like, that's, you know, he's crippled by this for a moment, and it'll be interesting to see where this goes. And like I say, I think. I mean, unless Lily dying is the end of the show, but it didn't seem like it. This felt like, because he said it was like tomorrow. It was like 18 hours or something like that. He put a specific time frame on it. So I feel like we're going to see something that either looks like her dying and he misinterpreted it, or something will change. Because one of the things I keep thinking about in this show is, like, he's so sure of what's going to come, is that what happens when the shock does hit him, that something he saw as concrete and happening in the future is avoided. Because he has a little conversation actually with Katie earlier on in the episode where they're in a physical world, but he's worried that they're magicians, because if I look into a minute in the future and see that you're folding your arms and you say, no, I'm definitely not doing that, I'm going to put my hands in my pockets and I'm not moving them until that time has passed, and therefore I have completely changed the future. So this idea of free will and fate and what that could do and how that alters the natural order of things. I mean, ultimately, yeah. Like, I think the point of this show largely is going to be about how we shouldn't know our future, and this is regardless of who's right or wrong here, this is clearly the type of psychotic craziness that goes into your head once you think you might know the future, and this is how it'll all crumble, is regardless of what the outcome, whether method A or method B or like whatever. Like, clearly, this is unhealthy.
Oh, absolutely. I really appreciate, though, the difference in the type of character that is usually in this sort of event. Usually when, okay, we've seen the future, okay, well, we're going to change it. And that's usually the driving goal, right? Whereas for him, it's like, no. I want to preserve this at all costs. I don't want us to break this at all. Come what may, whatever he's seen. I don't know if it's just because he wants what he's seen to come true, or if it's just a case of he is scared of changing it into something else. But like I say, he does not want to become the magician. He doesn't want to ruin that, and it's so different to what we usually get in these stories.
Yeah, it's a very interesting character, but at the same time, like, he's kind of got Kenton doing fairly, dastardly things. I mean, hell, Lily at one point in this episode even says to Jamie, stop thinking about them like a company. They're not a tech company. Think about them like the mob. Would you go and rat the mob out to the police? No, because you'd be sure they're going to find you and kill you. They're going to whack you, to use a mob term. So it does bring about this really interesting sense of, because the funny thing is Forrest, like, despite the fact that he was there for the murder of Sergei, and despite the fact that he's visibly upset about the idea of Lily dying, he doesn't want it to happen, but he seems to, he's willing to let it go if that's what if that's what the tram line is leading to, that's what's going to happen. But it's interesting that besides those key examples, morally speaking, he does seem to be concerned with keeping this as tightly moral as possible.
Yeah, it's interesting. I would say he is the closest thing we have to a villain. But given that we kind of don't know exactly why he's doing what he's doing, we know his motivations with his daughter, but we don't know what his goal is. Not exactly, and not why. And that makes him, it's hard to hate him right now, even though he has done some very questionable things.
And typically in stories like this where the idea of a multiverse is brought up, like, I feel like this type of character, and I've seen this in other shows to great effect, where you'll have a character who almost wants to steal another timeline's version of their lost loved one or something like that, where that might be the goal, but he is adamantly against multiverse, even as a theory, as something for them to explore. That is not what he wants to look into at all. I think
it's not even that he's against it, he is terrified of the multiverse. He is terrified that there is versions of him out there with a daughter, still fine, and he's the one that got stuck without her.
So, yeah, I think that's it. Makes her a fascinating character, maybe more so than maybe you'd predict if you just said what this show was about on paper. I feel like he is far more interesting. This is where I can really feel Alex Garland's kind of writing coming in, where he has a lot more layers to him, and I'm genuinely fascinated by what he's doing. Now, this is definitely the half of the episode that I liked the more so than the other half, but the Lily kind of like, should she call the police or whatever because they found the footage was doctored, and they get into a bit of a fight, her and Jamie. And what's frustrating about this scene for me is that it droned on a little bit longer than it needed to, but I did kind of ultimately like the point that it was making, where by the end, both of them, like, because he kind of like, ever since we broke up, I've been haunted by your face, by moments we shared, by names we used to call each other. But just right now, I remember what it was actually like, dating you. And I was like, yeah, I kind of felt that in the scene. I kind of felt like this is probably why they broke up, was that this type of debate and how this argument went felt very natural. It was just kind of long to watch, like, get to the point, like. But I appreciate it felt true to what they were saying, who they are. It just was kind of frustrating to get through a little bit.
Yeah, and it felt pretty real as well in terms of looking back at stuff with a bit of nostalgia. Even like a job you hated at the time, you'll look back and go, "Oh, it wasn't that bad."
Well, that comes back to the dangers of nostalgia, which again ties back into Forrest and what he's doing with his daughter. Yeah. I mean, not that anyone should forget their loved ones that have passed away, but like, there's a danger of becoming obsessed by trying to get it back or not moving on, and
just living in the past. I think is because again, it doesn't seem like he's trying to get her back, at least not right now.
Not right now, yeah. Unless it's all a big swerve, and the angle is that because also key detail that I think is worth mentioning: this building that with the computer in it is purposefully built on top of a fault line.
Yeah,
like this was not something they did by accident. Forrest, when he was placing this machine, he wanted it there for a reason. I can't even begin to speculate as to why, but
I have no idea. And the reason that I said, he doesn't want the door back yet is it's very possible that whatever he's seen in the future involves him somehow getting a version of his daughter back. It's not out of the realms of possibility that that's where it goes.
Yeah, maybe the idea is that he has to stop any variables from happening until the future that he's going to, because the idea that anything before then, if anything changes, could lead to the thing he wants to happen eventually not happening, whereas right now it's set in stone. But I mean, it's hard to. I mean, I don't know if we're going to go down some sort of path where, like, I don't know, the crack in the earth lets them actually like access something, or it's important to how the computer's like fueled, or so, I don't know. I have no idea.
I can't begin to fathom why the earthquake potential really kind of fits in, but I'm sure there's a reason. I'm sure it will become clear as we get towards the end. That
said, it does make me almost certain that the show's going to end with an earthquake destroying everything. The idea that this thing can't exist forever.
That's interesting, given that the whole thing that, because a couple of them are pretty nervous when the earthquake happens. And Kay's like, it's fine. I know the specs. I know exactly what this building can, withstand.
Well,
there's nothing to worry about.
Or she knew nothing was going to happen today, so that's why she's not worried. So.
There's that too.
Yeah. Yeah, because maybe that's why it was built here. Maybe Forrest knew somehow with like an earlier prototype that like this thing had to ultimately end with a destruction.
Maybe. I love that the rest of the team knows as well that look, we all know you two look at the future and break the rules. We're not breaking the rules, we're fine, but we all know you do it. So just, stop bullshit us.
Yeah. So Lily tries to go home. The homeless guy, I did enjoy the homeless guy saying she left you a note to Kenton on the window. That was amusing. But Kenton insists on taking her for therapy. Appointment with the doctor, which they set up because of what happened with the ledge and all that. I mean, obviously we knew that was all an act. And she rightfully doesn't trust the psychiatrist because of what she suspects of everyone else, of Kenton and all that. And and rightly so, because afterwards Kenton comes in and like pays them off and is like, okay, tell me everything. Like, do you think she's faking it? Does she actually got a problem? Like, what's going on? And because he says it's highly probable that she faked everything, because to him there's very little sign that there's any actual, schizophrenia or anything like that. Kenton basically is going to nab her. And I will say this, I was impressed with how the scenes on the highway looked, because obviously there's a lot of CG going on here, because like you can't have them out in the highway filming with all these cars going about, and obviously a car almost hits her at one point, and they also, she swerves the wheel and crashes the car, and that's how she gets away. All of that I thought looked surprisingly good, given it's a TV show. I thought, that actually looked quite nice in terms of just an effects point of view.
I agree. There was no point in my head where I was going, where I was taken out of it and going, this is clearly an effect. It looked real enough.
Yeah, and I really felt like I was on a busy highway during that scene, which is impressive, because it's not a feeling I think I tend to get in. It's certainly not TV shows, if not even movies, that much. I mean, typically movies on highways tend to be like a big car chase, which obviously feel really big budget, and they spend a lot of money to make them look good, but
it's usually empty.
Yeah. Well, not necessarily usually. No, I wouldn't necessarily say that. Like, movies get away with it because they have the budgets to do it. I think that's why this stuck out to me here, is that, I'm not used to seeing a scene on a highway like this in a TV show.
That's fair. I would say even on like 60-70% of movies, though, I feel like they're emptier than, not completely empty, but emptier than they should be.
Oh, sure.
And this didn't feel like, this felt like a standard usage, I guess, is the difference.
I'm numb to it in movies, but it stood out to me in a TV show, having this scene here. But she goes back to Jamie, who did decide to clean his apartment halfway through the episode and rushed it very quickly. I have to admit, I did audibly laugh when he closed the door and like one of the shelves fell off. Like, he made a point of making everything look nice and clean. He closes the door and a shelf falls and the stuff breaks all over the floor.
A futility to it, you might say.
Yeah. But she comes in, she immediately phones the police and reports the murder, and it leads us to our big ending of the episode where the police arrest her for reckless endangerment because she swerved the car, and the psychiatrist there, Kenton's there, and it leaves in this dark cliffhanger where Kenton is like, hey Jamie, and he closes the curtains, and it looks like he might be about to kill Jamie. We don't know for sure, but that's the cliffhanger.
Again, as with earlier, there's a pretty strong implication.
What do you think the chances are that we pull a big thing here, and at some point we reverse time? I'm not saying the characters reverse time, but I'm saying the show goes back and we go down a different multiverse path.
In a longer season or multiple seasons, I would say almost certainly.
Mm-hmm.
When we're already halfway, not so sure.
Because everything here, I feel like we're just getting started with like her and Jamie like patching things up, and I feel like it's weird if he dies right now. Maybe he gets away with that, out of it somehow, or maybe that's not what's actually happening. Maybe it's implied that he's killing him, but maybe it's not quite that. And all I could think was that this just feels like she's going to a psych ward and she's going to be imprisoned, and presumably her death is forthcoming because we saw that in the prediction machine. And all I could think was, this feels so doomed that I almost feel like it's inevitable that either something really swerves all of this, or maybe they die and the show continues because we go to a new strand. We go to a new timeline strand.
I would say I'm not going to rule it out. It's not impossible. I would say it's like maybe my gut reaction, it's like a 20% chance that that's what we do next.
The only reason why I'm thinking about this so much is just because it does feel so futile by the end of this episode. Like, it feels like they're both screwed. Like, where do we go from here that doesn't feel, far-fetched, like how she gets out of a psych ward or so on.
I'm not saying you're wrong. Like I say, I think it's possible. But I don't know. I think it's still on the unlikely scale. I'm ready to be proven wrong.
I'm not
on the next episode, though.
Yeah, I'm not saying that. I definitely think it's going to happen. I feel like there's going to be something. There's going to be some sort of sci-fi shenanigans in some way. And I was thinking about it because it just feels like, they're so screwed. It's so early on, relatively speaking. It's halfway through the show. So I think just curious to see how they get out of it.
My only real concern with that path, and the show could prove me wrong, is if they do that, I feel like it takes a lot away, from the futility of the multiverse, and fighting against it. If we just cut over to, there's a new version of this character now, and everything's all carries on.
I mean, that's a weird complaint or worry to have, to be honest, because we don't know what the point of the show is yet. Like, this could be imperative to the point that the show's ultimately going to make.
It could, and that's why I said at the start, it's possible that that it can prove that wrong. I said that was my concern.
Like, that's entirely based on, we think we've already got an idea of what the main point is based on what Forrest has said, but the point may be to prove him wrong, or the point might be that he's right to be scared and here's why, and so we're going to see what an alternate...
Yeah, no, I get what you mean, but I feel like for me, having Forrest have been so dead against it and being like terrified of the idea of it, to then cut to another version of him, presumably equally as terrified. Assume we're not changing much at all in this strand. It's the one hair, so to speak. Then that loses a little bit of something for me on the appeal of it.
Yeah, I don't get you at all. Like, I have to see what it does with it and what the point of it is. Like, I don't like to me. I'm not even sure what the point of the show, the ultimate point of the show, is going to be yet. So I can't sit here and say, oh, this would ruin what it's setting up for me, because ultimately, at this point, I'm still waiting to see what it does. Like, so
I'm not saying it's going to ruin anything. I'm saying the appeal of Forrest's character right now for me is how dead set against everything he is, and how he's so determined to be the one singular, universe in this multiverse. And I think, for me, cutting away to a second version of him with presumably similar fears.
Well, that's assuming it's that overt, because I'm not even saying it does that. I'm not saying it cuts to a different version, like we're in the Flash and we're going to Earth 2. Like,
but I feel like, okay, if we cut to if we have a different sequence of events that we're following, of any way that we get out of this, then it has to be a different version of all of the characters, surely.
It depends how ambiguous or not. It could be very subtle, and we may not be sure if it's happened or yet. It's one of those things we can theorize on. It could be the kind of idea where it doesn't matter what thread we go down, the result's going to be the same, and that'll sort of bring it back to the futility of it. But the idea of this losing the appeal of Forrest's character to me is insane, because I have no idea what they're going to say about what he's, what the sort of stuff he's talking about. Like, whatever point the show's going to make based on his character, like, doing whatever it's going to do, which might not be anything like what I've just like sort of suggested it might do, might be like how they make their point. Like, without it, you lose whatever the purpose of that character is. So at this point, like, I feel like this feels like in the end of Act 1 of a movie saying, oh, it can't, it better do this because this is my preconceived notions of what the movie is.
No, and I don't think that's fair at all. I'm not saying it better do this or it better not do that. I'm saying appeal, not the end point, not that it can't be fantastic, but face value appeal of what that character is right now. For me, the interest would diminish a little bit if we swerved into that particular thread of what it was doing. And that's not to say that won't also be fantastic and could be incredible, but my immediate interest and appeal would go down a little bit first.
Okay, I mean, I feel like a weird thing to say, because ultimately the point that it makes after that may be even better, and like the possibilities are basically endless, no pun intended. So
again, but like, if someone showed you two different trailers for a movie and you went, oh, that one appeals to me more, doesn't mean the other movie might not be better overall once you actually see it. And that's what I'm saying here is, okay, there's an appeal right now to Forrest in what I like and what it's doing. And that's not to say if it does the other thing that it won't be better and I'll like that more. There's just, right now, that's how I feel.
Yeah, okay. In that case, though, once I've seen the movie, I don't care what the trailers were.
Well, no. Once I get to the end, I won't care. But this is the journey.
What's the matter then? If you're admitting if you get to the end and you don't care because it was great, then what does it matter?
Because this is the journey. This is where we are right now, in episode to episode. This is how I feel. This isn't a movie. This isn't, well, we'll do the whole thing and then look at it. We're doing this as it unfolds. So this is where I am right now. Otherwise, what's the point in doing these every episode?
Yeah. Obviously, we're talking about how we feel episode to episode, but it's just weird to then predict something. You say, if it does this, though, whatever. Like, doesn't matter. Right, that was episode 4 of Devs. You can let us know what you think of the episode in the comments below. Like and subscribe, all that stuff. Get us on the Twitters at mail_fudge for channel updates. And even if all the shows stop, there'll still be content coming. I'll just make that point, since the world is happening right now. Because in
one way or another,
in 4 or 5 weeks' time, Devs will be done, Westworld will be close to done, Better Call Saul will be done. May not be much TV to replace it, so but
I think
we're still here.
I think both Westworld and Better Call Saul are done by the end of April, right?
So have no fear, but that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Go to patreon.com/mailfuzztv if you want to support us for as little as $1 per month. But that is us. Thank you once again. Watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV, guys. Have you got any vanilla?